About 6 years ago, my wife and I were fortunate enough to go to an event in Salt Lake City. It was called Powerful You, and it was by put on by a couple who had made a few bucks and retired to Utah and had embarked on this journey of personal discovery and healing and such. And the event was just amazing, kind of how it unfolded, and we didn't know what to expect. And little by little, it was almost like I don't know, an unfolding mystery kind of thing. An incredible event. Anyway, it was a powerful, and the guy who kind of put it on, ramrodded it, James, turned out to have a quite interesting story of his life that he told. And I didn't have a recording of the actual event I attended, so I found some other interviews and such he's done and kind of pieced things together, some of his better points, as far as I'm concerned, that he made. And I'm going to play that so that maybe it can be powerful for you as well. The context in which I'm doing this is the recognition that there are quite a few of us, human critters, who have challenges in life. And we sometimes blame others. And I don't know whether or not that's true. I don't know that it's a good strategy. And James was the first person to introduce me to this idea of taking responsibility for everything. And so I'll let him tell his own story here. And then after he tells his story and his thoughts on things, then I'm going to come back in and kind of tie this into what my thoughts are about it.
Basically what happened was that when I got to kindergarten, it became apparent that I had some pretty severe learning disabilities. And back then they had it wasn't resource, it was called special ed. And on the first day I went to special ed, my teacher called me up in front of the room and she said, "You know that only retarded and stupid kids go to special ed." And I was literally shocked. I was standing there and I was shocked. And as she told me to leave the room, she made the entire class call me stupid on the way out the door. And so I went home and I told my mom, and my mom was a undiagnosed, manic depressant with bipolar disorder. And my stepdad worked 15 hours a day, and my real dad was doing drugs. And my mom was just like, "Look, you're just going to have to learn to deal with it." And so when I went back the next day, I thought to myself, well, maybe this is just a one-time thing. But it wasn't. Every single day, she would bring me up in front of the room. She would tell me I was stupid. She'd make the whole class tell me I was stupid on the way out the door. And so essentially what that made me believe was, well, here's a person of authority, and they're telling me they're stupid. This is my teacher. She would know, right? So I must be, in fact, stupid, right? Is the takeaway, or if I'm not good enough, especially because she literally pulled me out in front of the whole class, and I was the one student that this happened to. It didn't happen to anybody else in the class. And so, that's the perception of self. That's what led me down a dark path ultimately. So I was actually, it was 15 months. I was in solitary confinement. I only got out of my cell every other day. But, when I look back on that experience now, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. That doesn't mean I'd ever go back there, but I wouldn't trade it from the world. And here's what I would tell you is, so shortly after getting in there, and when I got put in solitary, I was super depressed for like 2 weeks, and I just slept and slept and slept, and I was super uncomfortable, and I slept till I couldn't sleep anymore. But what happened was I got a letter from my dad about 2 weeks after being there, and what it said was very simply, most people don't get time to work on themselves as adults. I don't know how long you're going to be there, but don't let that time go to waste. And I took that to heart, and so I started this quest for information, every book, everything I can get my hands on to try to understand why I ended up in this place. So I had this epiphany. I used to write all of these long letters of people who had, long list of people I felt like had harmed me, because I felt very much like a victim at that point in my life. Like, things were happening. I didn't understand why all these bad things were happening to me, kind of like a Job scenario. Like, why am I being punished by God? And so, I'd been told my whole life, be a good person, do good things, and good things will happen. Well, that wasn't my experience, right? So there must have been some other creative element. So I'd written this long list of people who had harmed me, and I'd do meditations and prayers and try to offer them forgiveness. And one day I was looking at this list, and I looked down and I had this epiphany. And here's what it was, is the only common denominator between all of those experiences was me. And so what did that mean to me? It meant that either I somehow created all of these experiences, or, right, the world really is a crappy place and I probably don't want to play anymore. I thought about those two scenarios. What did it mean? Well, if I really was just blowing around like a feather in the wind, and then that meant I should commit suicide, because my life was really up to that point. But if I was, in fact, the creator of my experiences, that meant I could create something new in its place. But it also meant I had to take responsibility for everything that had ever happened to me. And so it was on that day, unbeknownst to me, that I realized that I took my power back. I decided that I was the creator of my experiences, and that I was going to figure out how I went about creating those experiences. I also took responsibility for everything that ever happened to me. I realized much later that was the day I took my power back. And I set out on a journey to figure out how we create our experiences so that I could create something new and magical in its place. So I'm going to explain this, because I think people get caught up on this really badly. And so essentially, here's what I'm saying. I had to decide from that point, what was the creative element of my life? What created my experiences? And so the question I asked myself is, was it the abuse that created my experiences from that point forward? And if the answer is yes, then I'm stuck forever, because I can't go back and change the abuse. But if the answer is no, then what is the creative element? And so I thought about the fact that not everybody who's incurred abuse in their life allowed it to destroy them. People who had support groups got the information they needed not to allow that to, destroy their life thereafter. And so what I decided is I never take credit for the other person's part in it, right? That their part has nothing to do with me. It totally has to do with them, right? And even my model for forgiveness came not letting the other person off the hook, letting myself off the hook. What I decided with the creative element is what I chose to believe about myself because of that experience. Meaning bad things happen to good people all the time, right? We have experiences. The question is what do we take away from that experience? Because that is what created our lives. And, I get people to tell me, well, you were only 5 years old, and that was the most logical thing to believe. But it was still my choice. And that's where the power was. In that moment, I had the choice to believe whatever I wanted about myself. If I'd had a good mentor or a mother who, was invested, she might have said, that has nothing to do with you. This is all about that other person, what they've gone through. You are, in fact, smart. But I didn't have that. So I made the assumption that I was dumb from that experience. And it was a belief that I was dumb. It was a belief that I was not good enough. It was all of those beliefs I adopted because of that experience that created my life forward, right? And so if it's the belief, I can go back and change the belief. I can't go back and change the abuse. We are constantly taking other people's garbage on. And it's that primal program. Please validate me. Tell me I'm okay. Tell me I'm okay. Tell me I'm okay. I'm going to let you off the hook. And here's what I want to say is that there are listeners right now listening to our sound of our voice. There is at least one person thinking about committing suicide. I mean, there is probably several. There are people that think they're not good enough. And I want to talk directly to those people right now. And I want you to tell you is, I don't care how dark it is for you right now. I don't care, if you think there's no way out, but you're wrong. We need you, because there is something so unique and precious about you, right? That has nothing to do with skills, right? It has to do with that path that you've been on to get here. That's the only thing that's unique about us. It's your perspective of the world. And your perspective and your story is going to help someday, if you join us. We need you. We need you to wake up. We need you to understand that you are good enough. There's nothing wrong with you. I promise there's nothing wrong with you. No matter what you think right now, there's nothing wrong with you. It wasn't about you. You can right now learn how to understand your emotions. You can learn right now how to change your perceptions, and you can create a life that's magical for you. And there's something so special about you. Look, we all have the same inherent value, right? Some of us just recognize it more, and that's all. It's just a recognition. And so please reach out for help. Please, reach out to the show. You just got to be willing to dig in and look at yourself and stop hiding behind your story. Your story only has power over you when you keep it inside.
Yeah, some pretty powerful stuff. And, I decided to keep in the wonderful invitation to reach out if you're having some real depression issues happening and you're contemplating hurting yourself. Yes, definitely reach out. I left that in because I think it's a good message. But the primary point of this piece is this idea that it is a good strategy to accept responsibility. So if you are in a tough position in life, and well, I just had a bunch of bad things happen. Nope, things don't happen to you. You made them happen. And in person, James talked more about how he would blame himself for every little thing. He was out on the playground once as a kid and was being bullied, and he was pushed and fell down and cracked his head open on the monkey bars or whatever. And he says, that was my fault. And he like, no, it wasn't. There was a bunch of other kids who were bullying you and they physically shoved you. And no, my fault. And even if you can't explain why it's your fault, even if it isn't true, might it not be handy for you to accept that responsibility as you move forward? Say, heck, yeah, it's all on me. And okay, I'm done with that. I'm moving forward. And now I build my own life. I'm in charge. That concept is incredibly powerful. And I would add something else to that I choose to do is I kind of have this attitude that if anything goes wrong, I accept the responsibility for it. When things go right, which they most frequently do, then I don't accept the praise for that. I don't say, yeah, I did a good job. I will then pass that on to someone else who may or may not be entirely responsible for it having happened. But I find that psychologically, if it's good, I pass it on. If it's bad, even if I didn't do it, I accept it and act as though I did. And boy, oh boy, does that put a person in a good position in life, I think. Even if we're lying to ourselves, I think in the long run it builds a better psyche, a better life. So, as you move forward, think about this. Do you want to accept personal responsibility for all that has happened to you and all that will happen? Are you in control? Are you in charge? Or are other folks running your life?
On till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go. I can't move on till I let go. I feel so lost, never at home. Need to be strong, every breath hold. Cause I can't move on till I let go.